Hello, everyone. Welcome to an all new episode of the Indic Explorer Show. This is your host, Vineet. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Our podcast is now available on Spotify and four other audio platforms as well. A very important issue that plagues today the larger discourse in India as an impact or an outcome of the larger public discourse in India is the identity challenges that the youth faces in terms of because of this discourse, in terms of how they see themselves and how they see others around them. So, and that causes a lot of social anxiety, especially watching the news. Most of us who watch the news all the time will attest to that. So, to talk about this very different subject today, I have with me a person who is well known in Indian prime time news television, the spokesperson of the BJP, Shehzad Poonawalla. Welcome to the show. Namaste, Shehzad.
Namaskar. Thank you for having me, Vinny. It's a pleasure being on your platform.
Thank you so much for being here. Coming after a very busy month in the Parliament session, and many congratulations to you and everyone, the whole team, for getting the Women's Reservation Bill. Much needed, much delayed one, but better late than never.
I think it's a testament to the vision of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji that right from 2014 onwards, this women's reservation, which we call as the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, is not just one issue. Right from 2014 onwards, whether it is the building of the toilets, whether it is delivering gas cylinders to houses and to kitchens, whether it is Nal Se Jal Yojana, whether it is making bank accounts and Mudra Loan Yojana accessible to women in a very big way, 70% of the beneficiaries are women, or whether it is the Beti Bachao campaign, which led to the sex ratio becoming positive for women for the first time. It's 1020, permanent commission for women in armed forces, or whether it is now the women's reservation bill. It's a continuous cycle where women are being given their rights. And do you know the houses that we've constructed for the poor? About 3.5 crore houses. Of that, about 70% have ownership or co-ownership of women, which means that those women have essentially become Lakpati Didis. So it's not just about one women's reservation, but yes, that is a fundamental constitutional right that was the Prime Minister's dream, and that was fulfilled.
A lot of interesting things that you mentioned there. But it also makes me sometimes feel that a lot of the discourse that happens around us uh, does not focus on many of the things you mentioned, unfortunately. I'm sure you understand what I mean here, right?
Absolutely.
And youngsters also sometimes either become completely disillusioned, or those who actually follow current affairs,
Hmm.
they become, how do I say it, polarized in a way. And there are two ways of looking at it. But when I say polarization, क्योंकि पहले polarization नहीं होता था, because there was only one side which was dominant for the first 4 or 5 decades, right? And everything was for or against it. But now there are two sides. Like, when I say dominant, I mean in terms of discourse. Obviously, in terms of strength, there is one side is much stronger. But what impact do you think this would have on youngsters? How do you think they should approach this?
Actually, I don't agree with your categorization. I think it's not a more polarized space, it's a more democratized space. But unfortunately, some people are so used to having one narrative, one family's agenda being driven as the agenda of the entire nation, that any counter to that agenda is immediately seen as polarizing. No, it's not polarizing. You have been displaced by the people of this country from what you thought was the only pole, and therefore you are uncomfortable with anybody else expressing their point of view. Please understand, prior to 2014 and after 2014, the biggest fundamental shift that has taken place is actually the explosion of social media. And that has taken place primarily because this government of Prime Minister Modi has invested in taking the digital network across the country. You have 6 lakh kilometers of optical fiber being laid. You had 2.5, 3 lakh gram panchayats being connected. You have smartphones now becoming very cheap to the extent that smartphones are in hands of 80 crore Indians, apart from the normal mobile phone connections. You have a situation where internet penetration has doubled. The cost of 1 GB of data has come down from a high of 300 rupees per GB in 2014 to about 8 to 9 rupees per GB. So, therefore, this has become very, very cheap and it has become more accessible. And due to social media, now the control over the narrative, which was erstwhile limited to one, two, three channels, and those were the ones that controlled the Lutyens bunch, as it were, control that narrative. Today, nobody controls the narrative. It's a free for all on the social media. There is no super editor sitting there. Anybody with a smartphone can broadcast, come on YouTube or on X or on any other platform and give their opinion. So it actually, the other side's view getting a legitimate and proportionate space is looked at by these people as, oh, polarizing, oh, these people have captured. No, they have not. There was one DD News during your time, and it ran eulogies to the first family. Then there were few 5, 6 channels. They ran eulogies to your family. Today there are 800 channels, and there is a whole range of views on social media. Nobody's banned. This is not China. So please, I don't think it's polarized. The problem is that whenever these people they lose power or they lose their narrative control, they feel that, oh, it's the end of democracy. And look, the other side is getting its space, and there are equal number of people on this side who are also articulating on social media. They have great YouTube channels running their agenda. So how is it polarized? I mean, it is just more democratized. You don't have the willingness to digest the other point of view. That is your problem. You pretend to be centrist or whatever that word is. You pretend to be a great moralizer, that, oh, I will come and preach to you how we must all be friends, how we must all accept the other side. Oh, we are in the middle and the loony left and the rowdy right. All of these terminologies good for preaching. Preach, preach, preach. Sorry, don't preach. Look at what your side does. Look at their obstinacy that they won't allow any other differing point of view to exist. It's either their way or highway.
Interesting point that you mentioned, because about their way or the highway. But you know what? It's not just the discourse, which you guys are part of, but even regular people. Yeah, the one very important point that you mentioned is it has been democratized. So, an average
Yeah,
Joe also today feels that he's a participant in this discussion, right? Because people are talking
that's
in
right.
kitchens, people are talking in drawing rooms, people are talking in offices, right?
Yeah.
But one product of this is, how should people, let's say in usual workspaces and regular spaces, how should they engage with people from a different point of view? And this is a challenge I'm sure you obviously face a lot, but regular people also these days, because of democratization, you have to work or have relationships with people who are on the other side. कैसे इसको हैंडल करें?
Look, I am nobody to lecture about this. Frankly, I don't get along with my brother. And my brother actually was the one who broke our relation because I took a point of view against the Congress's operations, the manner in which the family runs the show in the party. Tehseen came out and he said that he does not want to have any relations with me. That is the fact. So, people can come and tell you that this is how we should behave, this is how we should think, we are all together in this, all of that. But that's not how it actually is. I think that one should have the Voltairean spirit that I may not agree with you, I may disagree with you, but I will fight till the end for your right to say it. And has the Congress or its ecosystem ever done that? No, they haven't. The Congress's ecosystem has by and large been an extremely intolerant, extremely arrogant, and extremely power hungry and power dependent system which does not want to engage with any side. What has it done all its life? It has either castigated the other side as being some kind of unconstitutional point of view. If you speak about Indic values or Bhartiyata, you're retrograde. If you speak about Indian languages, Bhartiya Bhasha, Hindi, etc., then you're taking the country backward. So these people have never chosen to engage. They have always felt that we have this moral superiority about ourselves. We will look at everybody else as second class or third class. If they even challenge our view democratically, we will reduce them, castigate them, demonize them, and then they say, "Oh, but aap engage nahi karte ji." What has Randeep Surjewala said about the people? Forget parties. They call us communal day in day out. ठीक है. Randeep Surjewala, or quite a tall leader of the Congress, says Janta Rakshas hai. Why? Because they vote for the BJP. He said that. This is equivalent to Hillary Clinton saying that a whole bunch of voters are the basket of deplorables. There is an absolute parallel there. And these people claim to be liberals. They castigate the entire section of people. 37% people of this country have voted for us. You are castigating them as Rakshas. They are deplorables. They are communal. What kind of categorization of BJP's supporters is this? You forget BJP, you can call us Hitler, Mussolini, or whatever you call us. What are you categorizing the people as? So they are intolerant to the core. They do not want to engage. And they're actually, Mahua Moitra once in parliament spoke of the 7 signs or some 10 signs of fascism. Actually, all of them apply to them. All of them unequivocally apply to them. So they are actually the fascists who don't want to engage, and worse, just like I have my coffee, they don't want to wake up and smell the coffee. They just don't want to smell the coffee. They don't want to realize that this country has changed. It has moved on from being grateful to one family for everything, and it has now acquired a self-confidence that it doesn't look up to this family as if it's some monarch. They can't accept that.
Yeah, I think, and a lot also has to do with the fact that there, in the first few generations, people used to look up to the ones who got us freedom, right? But now the generations which have been born are in independent India, they don't have that
Hmm.
memory, of to look up to that side in that way. But with regards to
Hmm.
that, एक चीज पूछना था. What do you think about the Nehruvian consensus? It has obviously broken off now. But what did you think about it in terms of the past, and how do you think it has evolved, and what it is, how relevant or irrelevant it is today?
The Nehruvian consensus is as real as Indira's spirit of democracy. What is this? I don't understand. What is Nehruvian consensus? On what basis is this terminology Nehruvian consensus has even been evolved? Look, let's talk about facts. Sardar Patel united 550 plus odd princely states, 562 to be precise. Nehru had one state to unite. He messed up. If there is a consensus, it should be the Patelian consensus. The guy got 562 princely states to consent with us. There's no Patel consensus. Oh, because how can there be Patel consensus? He was obviously not smoking an imported cigar. So he can't have a Patelian consensus. कैसे हो सकता है भाई? बेचारा गुजराती है वो. Only Nehruvian and his upper crust people can have it. Nehruvian consensus. What Nehruvian consensus did he have with Ambedkar ji? What consensus was Nehru having with Rajendra Prasad on Somnath? Acha, what consensus was Nehru having when Gandhiji asked for a next election in 46 or something for the next Congress president? Out of 15 or 16 PCCs, 12 or 13 voted for Patel. 2 or 3 did not vote. None of them voted for Nehru. Then there was subsequently a vote of the CWC members. Which consensus was Nehru hammering out? Nehru, first of all, brought in the first amendment to curtail our freedom of speech. Nehru banned a whole list of books. Nehru put Majru Sultanpuri in jail. I don't know which consensus you're talking about. The only consensus Nehru had was the fact that he wanted to be in power. If Nehru had any other consensus, he should have had it with Jinnah, and he should have ensured that the country doesn't split for the ambitions of two people. So if Nehru's consensus is highly overrated commodity. I don't think anybody used it during his lifetime. I think post facto, this entire eulogizing of Nehru and making him into some kind of a holy sacred cow, which has happened through our history textbooks and other things, that process has led to this creation of a mirage called Nehruvian consensus. By the way, Nehru, for all his consensual spirit, imposed Precedence rule, which Ambedkar told should become a dead letter of law, he dismissed a government in Punjab in 1951 because he could not get along with the chief minister. He then dismissed the Pepsu government in 1953, imposed precedence rule there. And the first elected communist government anywhere in the world in 1959 of Nambudri Pad was dismissed by Nehru. I think we need a break from this eulogizing of Nehru as some sort of a great consensus builder. There is no Nehruvian consensus. I'm sorry to bust that terminology, whoever came up with.
But would you
There's no
say
Nehruvian
that the
consensus.
system, एक लाइन ये बहुत सुना होगा आपने, पावर में कोई भी हो सिस्टम हमारा है. You would have heard this, right?
Yeah, Kashmir Files used by
Yeah.
Pallavi
So
Joshi.
what do you think about that? मतलब
Well, it's a reality. The Congress is not a political party. The Congress is actually a system. The Congress is actually an entire ecosystem that basically is extremely comfortable at the idea of usurping, grabbing, holding on to, and infiltrating any structures of power. The Congress is absolutely brilliant at it. And even to rid the Congress, you can't do it just by defeating them in an election. You may have defeated the political party in 2014 and 2019. Yes, we've defeated Congress party in 2014, 2019. We haven't defeated the Congress
why?
infiltration. And the Congress infiltration is very deep. It is very deep because it has not happened over a period of 10 years. It has happened over a period of 50 to 60 years. And it has happened in all areas of media, of society, of art, of cinema, culture, judiciary, and many other spheres where the Congressism as a term and as a philosophy has infiltrated and it has made deep inroads. And to cleanse that system is going to take time. I mean, cleansing the system, and by what I mean is, uh, in the sense that that system brings with it a sense of elitism, it brings with it a sense of corruption, moral deprivation, and all of those things come along with it. So even if the Congress is voted out of power, say 5 years, 10 years, the congressy culture persists in many areas, and therefore it keeps affecting the system. Therefore, that system needs to be revamped and cleaned, and that process will take many, many, many generations. It won't happen overnight. But let me give just one example. The one example of how the Congress preserved its position in political power is by making the entire educational process or the process of our connect with our everyday symbolism very, very, creating a sense of heen bhavna amongst Bharatiyas by making all those symbols of gulami continue to persist. We have in central Delhi roads named after all the Mughal kings, all Babur Road, Humayun Road, Shahjahan Road, Akbar Road, where Congress's office is. How many roads have been named after the family of Prabhu Shri Ram? We know that Akbar का बाप कौन है, उसका बाप कौन है, उसका बाप कौन है. We can trace full. If I ask anybody पृथ्वीराज चौहान जी के फादर का नाम, कोई नहीं बता पाएगा. प्रभु श्री राम के फादर का नाम बता दो, वो नहीं बता पाएगा.
लेकिन शहजाद इसमें मेरा एक क्वेश्चन ये है कि देयर हैव बीन examples of state governments, ठीक है, where let's say some changes have been, for example history textbooks, because that's one of the most manifested ways of this, right? जहां पे टेक्स्ट बुक बदला है और फिर गवर्नमेंट चेंज होने के बाद वो लोग ने इमीडिएटली जाके रिवर्स कर दिया है. सो दे मतलब व्हेन आई से वो लोग मल्टीपल पार्टीज मल्टीपल इन मल्टीपल स्टेट्स एट अ स्टेट लेवल हैव बीन एबल टू डू इट. सो why would it take like 9 years is a sufficient time, I would think, right, to make changes in the system of some form? I mean system.
Look, let me talk about the system. Prior to 2014, and be very honest with me and answer candidly, did you ever think Ram Mandir would be built?
I never thought even after 2014, to be honest.
Anyway, no. Prior to
Impossible,
2014,
not
you
in my
never thought Ram
lifetime.
Mandir would be built. Okay. Prior to 2014, did you ever imagine that the most important centers of Sanatan Dharma, Kashi, would be the way it is now, Kashi Vishwanath Dham, Mahakal, Somnath would be extended? Prior to 2014, did you ever feel that Kashmir, who has a rich Sanatan legacy, actually Kashmir is named after Rishi Kashyap and Ma Sharda Peeth and all of that great educational legacy of Hinduism comes from Kashmir. Actually, I would rank it as important as Kashi as a center of Hinduism, right? Did you ever feel that there would be a time where today you are having thousands of mandirs being restored there? No. Nobody would have thought 370 would be revoked. Did you feel that something as important as the Sengol, which actually demonstrated the transfer of power and is this important part of our Tamilian and Indian culture, would get the place of pride in the new parliament? And that new parliament actually reflects a entire spirit of Bharatiyata. I'm not saying the old parliament did. It was built by Indians, it was built by Indian money, it was built by Indian workers, but it was not built for India. Let's be clear, the British built it to keep it as a legislative council. They never imagined that we would get independence in 1947. They built it in 1927 to serve their imperial purposes. Did you imagine all these things would happen? These things have happened. These things have happened. So I appreciate that a lot more is expected. But I also think that if we take a step back and we see where we've reached, I think we would figure that in 9 years, the amount that has been done is actually unparalleled. And there is a large weight still to cover. I concede that. Because the infiltration is very deep. But having said that, these things are also unimaginable things that have happened. It took us 60 years to get rid of that George's Cross from our naval ensign. Can you believe it? I mean, we had navies like Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's Navy, and we dedicate a naval sign on some George Cross, and or to rename Rajpath and to make it Kartavya Path and have a Netaji statue there. I mean, these things were never thought of before. They've happened, and they will continue to happen. Now, India has awakened. India has realized or has started to realize that something very important was being kept away from it for the last 60-65 years out of this politics that was practiced by the non-right, which is the Congress left coalition. I don't mean political coalition, I mean intellectual coalition. And today people are awakened, and no matter what, people are not going to go back to that. So there's not going to be a situation where they'll come to power and they'll think that they can rename Amrit Udyan to Mughal Gardens.
I mean, the one thing I would say is that, you are very, like, how do I say it? You have that thing about Sanatani culture. You really, like, look at it as something that is worth treasuring, right? I mean, I mean, I find that very, because you are born in a Muslim family, but still you don't see that as a contradiction at all.
My faith is Islam. My culture is Hindu. Nobody should have any doubt about what their culture is if they are living in this part of the land. Their culture is not Arab. Their culture is not European. Their culture is not American. Their culture is Hindu. This is Hindustan. It is Hindustan because we all have the same culture. When people from abroad look at us, they don't look at us as Hindu or Muslim. They look at us as Hindustani. They look at us from the prism of our culture, which is one. And even if my religion is Islam, how come my cultural icons will change? How come my icon will become Aurangzeb, who came to loot this country? My icon is Prabhu Shri Ram and Krishna. They teach me how to live in this land. Simple. Forget me, Indonesia, it's all Muslim. What is their entire... they have more Ram Leelas than we have. They have cultural symbols which are all connected with Hindu Dharma. You see, wherever you can see Garuda Airlines on their notes, Thailand King Rama, and so many countries. So you can change your religion at the point of a sword or because of some luring, but you can't change your culture. So the culture remains the same, and our culture is very clear. This is our culture. These are our national cultural icons. The Mahabharata, the Ramayana, these are our texts, and there should be no problem in accepting this at all. And if those who don't accept this are actually, it is they are the ones who are in identity crisis if they don't accept this, and they are the ones who are lost. They have to accept that this is our culture, and we must all abide by our culture, be proud of our culture.
Do you think that liberalism and nationalism ideologically I mean, I'm sure that there are going to be differences, but can there be some commonalities on which they can agree? You know, do you see any common ground that can be held for the betterment of the country?
First of all, in our country, whom we identify as liberals or not liberals. First, let's get the theory clear. Who are we identifying as liberals? Are you identifying Arfa Sherwani as liberal? Are you identifying these jokers in Wire as liberal? Are you identifying Congress Party as liberal? Congress Party is not liberal. Congress Party stood for Shah Banu case to be overturned in Parliament. Congress Party stood with the hardliners. Congress is not liberal. Congress stands against UCC. Congress is not liberal. Congress stands for every kind of vote bank that actually takes us 1,000 years back. They are not liberal. They are against women's rights. They are against progressive measures. They are against. They are not even. They're not even liberal when it comes to economic policy. They have a very random communist thought which has not survived anywhere in the world. Look at what Rahul Gandhi says. He is against private sector. He's not abusing one or two entrepreneurs. He's abusing Indian entrepreneurial talent and private sector. He is no liberal. He is a cast in the die political opportunist. None of his views are anyway close to economic liberal perspective or social liberal perspective. None of them. Not one. So if he's pretending to be, and now his latest thing, that he wants to divide the country on caste lines, on this OBC thing. Look, if you have a view that the country should be splintered across caste lines and it should be more entrenched into caste, if, even when you were in class 5 or 6, in your civics books, you must have read, we have to get rid of caste, we have to get rid of differences on caste. This man is going around the country saying that the country should be more divided on caste. And he thinks we are such fools that we are going to buy his argument that they are for OBCs. Bhai, hamara Pradhan Mantri OBC hai bhai. We have a OBC Prime Minister. Who are you talking to? We have given this country an OBC Prime Minister who completed not one but is going to complete a second tenure. You gave zero Prime Minister, zero, ille. No Prime Minister of Congress has been OBC. Only from one family. They gave about, from ever since they were formed, Congress, and all the chief ministers, only 17% of their chief ministers have been OBC. BJP, since the time it has been born till now, how many of us CMs we have made? We made 30% CMs OBC. 85 of our MPs are OBCs, like that's 27%. 27 ministers are OBCs. 40% of our MLCs are OBCs. What are you saying, OBCs? We have done much more for all of these people, not on the basis of caste, on the basis of the fact that they all have been deprived of a certain socio-economic upliftment that they should have got 60 years ago. When we have given toilets, when we have given Nal Se Jal, when we have given Pakka Awas, when we have given Ration, when we have given Mudra Loan Yojana, when we have opened bank accounts, when we have given gas cylinders, the biggest beneficiaries of these have been poor people cutting across caste lines. And by default, SC, ST, OBC minority have got 70% benefit. So we created a new caste called Labharti where all poor, including those Muslims, 85% Pasmanda Muslims, are also getting benefits. What have you done? You opposed the OBC caste commission report, which was the Mandal report. It was Rajiv Gandhi who, on the floor of the house, opposed Mandal. Do you know that? In Lok Sabha in 1990, he opposed Mandal. His family, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi both were against the implementation of the recommendation of Mandal Commission, which gave its recommendations in 1979. 80 you had Indira's government, 84 you had Rajiv's government. Both of them did not put the recommendations into implementation. Then VP Singh government, supported by BJP, put it into place. And Rajiv Gandhi opposed it. They talk about OBC. Can you believe this? And all of this is only to divide the country. So they are not liberals. They are not nationalists. Which nationalist will go and berate his country on foreign soil? चलो आपकी हमसे दिक्कत है ना, मोदी से दिक्कत है, बीजेपी से दिक्कत है, दो ना गाली, बीजेपी को दो गाली, go abroad and abuse BJP, no problem, abuse them, abuse Modi on foreign soil, no problem, we don't have a problem. Why do you go and abuse India? India's democratic institutions are crumbling, India's democracy is dead. He goes and tells United States and United Kingdom, and I'll quote his speech, I remember it verbatim, I am shocked at the oblivion of the United States and UK, which he feels are the foremost democracies, of the disappearing democratic space in India. And he's not said this once, he said this multiple times. He was giving one interview to Nicholas Burns, who's currently the ambassador of America to China. He was telling Nicholas Burns that why doesn't the American government or Americans think of intervening into India? He said that in so many words, that why don't you intervene here? Who demands intervention into our affairs? We are a self-respecting nation. We pride our sovereignty. This man says that our sovereignty should be put at stake because he lost an election. And he's a nationalist. He's neither liberal, he's neither nationalist. So yeah, if the only common thing between liberals and nationalists is that Rahul is none of them.
Would you say that at least in the Canada issue, it was a little different? I'm
You really
asking you,
think so?
compared to others.
I don't think so. Give it time. The Congress, knowing the Congress party, will take a stand that is against India's interests. It is 100% sure. They question the surgical strike. They question Balakot. They question the abrogation of Article 370 and gave narratives which allowed Pakistan to put their point forward in United Nations. They went and they basically undermined our armed forces in Galwan. They have gone and said Pulwama was an internal job, thereby giving Pakistan a handle on international soil to say Pulwama was not done by us, don't ask us, and to get off the FATF. They have given Pakistan clean chits on 26/11, on Samjhauta.
No, I don't deny that. I mean, the past this thing, but if you saw Shashi Tharoor's statement, or generally, I think in this,
Shashi Tharoor is Congress. Shashi Tharoor को कांग्रेस मानते हो आप? वो खुद अपने आप को कांग्रेस नहीं मानते भाई, तो मजबूरी में कांग्रेस है.
नहीं मतलब on this specific issue, I think there was a slight change compared to the past.
I don't think Shashi Tharoor's views are taken seriously by the Congress themselves. We take it seriously. Shashi Tharoor has long back applauded the positions that we've taken on foreign policy. But I don't think now Congress, on one point, the Congress party initially when the Ukraine-Russia crisis started and Jaishankar ji and Modi ji held a straight line, we said we are on the side of peace. We are neither on the side of A or B. We are on the side of peace. We need to ensure that there is peace. We, of course, respect international rule of law. We don't allow people to take people's sovereignty for granted. All of that said, but we are going to stand by our peace. There are other factors to be considered. We bought our oil from Russia. We bought our S-400 from Russia. America didn't put us in CAPSA. America sold us the GF414 engines. We signed a deal on that. America sold us the Predator drones. And America considers us a strategic partner. Russia is our old partner. So we are in that sense, we have been able to hammer a consensus, which was even seen in the New Delhi Declaration of G20. The Congress initially, and go and check, including Mr. Tharoor and including Mr. Tiwari, they said India should take a position on the side of Ukraine. It's on record. I'm not lying. You can go check it out. If I'm lying, you can call me out. Now, Rahul Gandhi, when he went to Brussels or wherever he went, and Manmohan Singh in his interview to Indian Express acknowledged that the Indian position taken by this government was absolutely the perfect position. But what about the stand you took then? Why were you pressuring us to vote against Russia in United Nations? Just because you want to score a point. These people, you give it time. You know, the elements in Canada have basically not, I mean, the worst sufferers of the Khalistani extremism, ironically, is the Congress, because they've lost chief ministers, they've lost the prime minister. Instead of standing by that, the Congress, whenever it gets an opportunity, even betrays its own. They have betrayed Indira Gandhi also many times. There's only a one man, Ravneet Bittu, in their party who has some sort of spine. The others don't. Rahul Gandhi, definitely not. Give it time, he will ditch India's stand. I'm pretty confident about that.
Okay. Coming to a very interesting point that you mentioned earlier with regards to the roads being named around Mughal kings and all of that. This is a very important part because history and the way history books are written is a very, very like touchy subject for many Indians, right? But the question here is how much of the focus in discourse should be on our past versus our present and future. And the reason I ask you is there are two ways to look at it. Ek to, unless you come to terms with your past, you can't move forward. But the second thing is if you only hold on to the past, then also you can't move forward. So where do you think what do you think is the balance here where it lies?
Look, this is not a question of holding on to your past. But the fact of the matter is that those who don't learn from the lessons of history are condemned to repeat it. This is not just a saying, it is actually true. If we don't learn from the mistakes or from the good things that we've done in history, we are going to repeat it. And the future is basically history repeating itself in future. So unless we correct and understand, learn from the mistakes of the past and rectify those mistakes, how are we going to ensure that in the present and in the future we don't make those mistakes? For instance, if the Americans still don't understand that them playing footsie with Osama bin Laden had led to 9/11 in a sense, and if they continue to make a distinction between good terror and bad terror, then in the future that same terror is going to come and bite them again. We told the world, na, good terror, bad terror nahi hota hai. That's not holding on to history. That is telling people to learn from their mistakes. हमने तो पहले बताया, हम तो बता रहे हैं, हम तो देखकर बता रहे कि फ्यूचर में ये गलतियां ना हो. And see, whenever a building has to go high, when you make a very high-rise building, you ask a civil engineer, the higher the building, the deeper you have to lay the foundation. तो फाउंडेशन डीप होगा तभी ऊपर जाएगी अपनी बिल्डिंग. अगर आप अपने फाउंडेशन को ही नहीं समझना चाहते, आपको जो धरोहर मिली हुई है उसी को आप छोड़कर किसी आर्टिफिशियल स्ट्रक्चर पर अपना स्ट्रक्चर खड़ा करना चाहते हैं, वो ज्यादा दिन टिकने नहीं वाला है. हमने बहुत वर्षों तक, फॉर मेनी इयर्स, ऑन दिस नेगेटिव एंड वेरी वेस्टर्नाइज्ड मॉडल ऑफ सेकुलरिज्म, वी ट्राई टू सुपर इम्पोज आवर आइडिया ऑफ सेकुलरिज्म. क्या हुआ उसका? It's been called out. Rather than that, let's understand the Indian model of secularism and let's respect that. That is not looking into the past. Nobody here is a prisoner of the past. We are saying learn from the past, don't repeat the mistakes in the future. Only Congress is the one who does not want to come to terms. वैसे तो they live in past tense. You see Rahul Gandhi, any speech if he can make for 10 minutes without invoking his family, or invoking his Indira ji, Rahul, Dadi ji, Nana ji, and all of that, he can't make a speech more than 10 minutes without invoking his family. He will tell us not to live in the past. If ISRO lands Chandrayaan 3 ka mission successfully, the Vikram lander lands on south side of the moon, we have to go all the way back to Nehru to thank him. They are telling us don't look at the past. Bhai, if Nehru ji has to be thanked for ISRO's performance today, then why shouldn't we look at some other things in history and see where we have gone wrong? इसमें क्या गलत है? Selective viewing of history should not be allowed.
Okay, point taken. So, lastly, since you are a regular panelist in primetime news television, and you know how high the decibels go, I'm sure even there will be bad days for you as well कि आप मतलब थक के घर आते हो और मतलब परेशान हो जाते हो. And for the people watching this also, after a point of time, the noise is just too much, right? कैसे मतलब, do you think people should switch off from the news every once in a while? Do you switch off, by the way?
Look, I think it depends on how you consume the news. You have to be strategic about the consumption of news. Of course, today, because news comes from different sources, I don't think many people in the age group of, say, 18 to 40 consume television news as their primary source of news. I think they get most of their news from social media, from Instagram, from a lot of other sources, from peers who are sharing things on social media, WhatsApp, etc. So that age group is not necessarily watching television news debates. They probably get to see a clip or two that goes viral in a television news debate. I think the larger, older audiences who are not that adept at social media use, or who don't go and necessarily stream something on YouTube, would be the ones who spend their evenings watching television debates. Now, are television debates getting a little toxic? I would say yes, because the way the channels run, and the way these days a lot of the spokespersons of the channels, of the different parties, when they come on the channels, their objective is not to have a conversation. Their objective is essentially to derail. देयर एसेंशियल पॉइंट इज कि भाई डिरेल कर दो, आधा एक घंटा टाइम पास करना है, डिरेल करना है, अपना चेहरा दिखाना है और निकलना है. So when the objective is not to have a conversation or a discourse but to derail, then it reduces into a tu meme slanging match, etc. And it's not productive for anybody, including the participants and including the viewer. And therefore the television channels should, I don't know why, Indie Alliance says that we are going to give one candidate one seat, one seat, one election. Matlab, basically, all of them will come together and put one candidate against BJP. That's what they say. I said very good. अभी डिबेट में भी तो ऐसा करो ना. उनका 4 लोग आता है, हमारा एक आदमी रहता है, and they get 4 times the time. So Sappa will speak, RJD will speak, same things, huh? AAP will speak and Congress will speak. 4. Now, if you assume 2 minutes, 8 minutes they have spoken. Now, no BJP guy is going to get 8 minutes to speak. बीजेपी के साथ एक आध कोई और एनडीए का हो गया तो maximum 2 minutes for me, 2 minutes for him, 4 minutes. 8 minutes they are going to shout and they are going to derail, and 4 minutes we get to speak. So I tell television channels, why don't you call one of their best panelists, call one of our best panelists, let the two sides come, sit 10 minutes, 5 points, discuss to the T, and let the discussion happen, let the people know. But then television channels also want, 6 windows, 7 window, 12 windows, पूरा जिला भरना है उनको, तो हम
Gin-
उसमें क्या कर सकते हैं? But therefore, we communicate through other means also, through social media and other means.
Yeah, I think social media is, at least for the youth, it's the best way to directly reach out.
Or
Yeah.
podcasts, or podcasts, and so yeah, so television news channels have to think how they want to take this forward. But I do agree that these days the news channels, their debates can be cultivated and curated in a better manner. I think the fault lies in many levels. It lies at the spokesperson's level also, it lies at the channel's level also. So not to blame anybody, not to absolve myself or my fraternity from it, but we are all to blame for the lowering standards of television
Right.
debates.
And what do you think about podcasts as a medium?
I think podcasts are fantastic, but it reaches a great number of audiences. And thanks to digital India, now that streaming and data has become so cheap, and we are now at 5G speeds, and we are going to get better technology and better internet access and connectivity. I think this is the way forward. People just will choose whatever subject they want to hear something on, and hear 2 people or 4 people converse on it, having a dignified discussion on it. And I think that's going to be the way forward. A lot of people are switching to that, so I think that's going to be the way forward in the next 10 years, maybe in some other format also, more engaging format.
Great. With that, we come to the end of our podcast. Shehzad, thank you so much for joining us for such an amazing conversation.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Okay, guys, with that, we come to the end of today's show. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time. See you around.
Thank you. Jai Hind.